I've been in plenty of situations where I had less than 10 seconds to make a first impression. From meeting ship captains for the first time to stepping into high-stakes boardrooms, the one thing that I've learned is if your self-introduction is awkward or forgettable, you've just made your own job harder. So think of your introduction like this bow tie. Quick to put on if you've practiced, sharp when it's done right, and, let's face it, it makes people take notice. You don't want to mumble, I'm Dennis and I work in accounting. You want to sound like someone worth remembering. And a useful tip here is focus on one unique detail that will make it easier for people to remember you. Some unique benefit about what you do. So it's a natural way for you to continue a conversation once you've introduced yourself. Be sure to stick around, because today I'll show you how to turn that flat introduction into one that actually opens doors. And you're going to want to stick around to the Mastery Minute at the end, where I'll break down a phrase that covers this whole topic perfectly. One that creates openings wherever you go. And if you got questions, be sure to drop them in the chat. I'll answer a few live right after the show. So I want you to meet Aaron. He's a brilliant software developer, but every time he introduced himself, he kind of froze. At networking events, his go-to line was, "Hi, I'm Aaron, and I write code." End of story. And people would just kind of nod politely and then drift away. So we worked on crafting a short and engaging hook. So now, instead of that bland opener, Aaron says, "I help companies turn big data into simple tools that anyone can use." Suddenly, people started paying attention. They ask, "Oh, and how do you do that?" So his conversations doubled, his opportunities tripled, and he hasn't dreaded introductions ever since. And that is the power of a self-introduction that actually works. So why do most self-introductions fail? And how can you make yours clear, confident, and memorable? Let's break it down. Here's the thing. Most people blow their chance at a great first impression in the very first sentence. The problem? Their introduction is too vague, or it's too long, or it's too robotic. It kills the conversation before it even starts. But when you nail it, you can actually spark curiosity, build meaningful dialogue, and open doors that you didn't even know were there. So your goal is to be short, clear, and interesting enough that the other person wants to know more. So, like I said, those generic, vague titles, they're not interesting enough. If it's too long, people are going to tune you out. And if it's too robotic, because you've memorized it, it kills any real authentic connection. So let's be real when we introduce ourselves. And we're going to start this very simply. Step 1. Start with your name and your role. But don't start there. Instead of just giving your title, frame it in a way that paints a picture of what you actually do and the impact you make. For example, imagine you're meeting someone at a conference. You could say, "I'm Sarah, I'm a project manager." But let's face it, that's a dead end. It tells them nothing about why they should keep talking to you. Now, picture this. You smile, you shake their hand and say, "I'm Sarah, and I make tech projects launch on time and on budget." Wow. So instantly they can imagine the value you bring, and it might spark them to ask, how do you do that? Now this works because you're not just giving information, you're opening the door to a conversation by showing purpose, skill, and relevance. See that? We didn't say I'm a project manager. You don't have to name your title. Just tell what value you bring. And speaking of value, add a value statement. This is where you explain the benefit of what you do in a way that matters to the listener. So imagine you're chatting at a networking event. If you say, "I'm a web designer," people might nod and move on. It's pretty basic. But if you say, "I help small businesses grow their online sales by designing websites that convert visitors into customers," wow, suddenly you're telling them not just what you do, but why it's valuable. And they can actually picture the result. And it might spark curiosity or lead to follow-up questions. It works because it shifts the focus from your job title to the impact you create, which makes your introduction more memorable and engaging. Step 3. Remember what I said before. Keep it short. Think of this like a movie trailer, not the whole film. You're not giving your life story. You're just giving enough to hook their interest. A couple of sentences at most. A concise or short intro invites the other person to ask questions, and it keeps the energy moving rather than making them feel stuck or listening to a long biography. If you ramble, you risk losing their attention before you've shown your true value. But if you leave them curious, just like that movie trailer, they will naturally want to know more, and that's when real conversation can begin. Don't give it all away at the first go. Step number 4, match your body language and your tone to the situation. So this is all about nonverbal messages that you send before you even finish your first sentence. So every time you want to smile, make eye contact, and use a friendly tone, especially in casual chats. These signal openness and approachability. It makes you look more friendly. If you're in a more formal setting or an interview or something, keep your posture steady, keep your gestures controlled, and your voice measured to project confidence and professionalism. My wife was just telling me about how if you lower the tone of your voice, it will automatically make you sound more powerful, more in control. So this really does work because people often remember how you made them feel more than the actual words that you used. So your delivery needs to match the impression that you want to leave. Use that body language. Okay. And finally, step 5, let's go into adapt your introduction for the setting that you're in. Your introduction shouldn't be one size fits all. It works best when it feels like it belongs in this moment. So picture yourself, say, at a networking event. So you might highlight the you might highlight the benefit that you bring so people will immediately see your value. In an interview, you want to tie into directly to the role you're aiming for, showing the interviewer exactly how you fit. And finally, in casual chats, keep it light, keep it relatable so that you can build rapport naturally. And this works because it aligns your message to the listener's expectations. Put yourself in the listener's shoes so they can know so you know how to treat them and how to talk to them, making it easier for them to connect to you and remember what you said. All right. So let's look at some example transformations. Okay, here's Kevin over here, and he's up here, and before he just comes up and says, "Hi, I'm Kevin, I'm in marketing." Wrong. A better way to do that, Kevin, is, "Hi, I'm Kevin. I help brands tell stories that turn followers into loyal customers." Doesn't you see the big difference? I help brands tell stories. I turn followers into loyal customers. So instead of leaving someone with just a department title, this version gives them a vivid mental image of the work Kevin does and the results he delivers and the value he brings. Imagine Kevin saying that at a networking event. Suddenly, the person he's talking to might say, they might think about their own brand story or ask, "Oh, how do you do that?" This works because it transforms a static label into a dynamic promise of value. And that opens the door to opportunities and also real conversation. Okay, let's say you're just a student, like Anna over here. Anna says, "Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a student." Okay, once again, we're stuck with the labels. So let's change that. "I'm Anna. I'm a student studying computer science," or "I'm studying computer science so that I can help business build smarter, faster software that solves real-world problems." That shift takes the introduction from generic to intriguing. Suddenly the listener can imagine the kinds of projects Anna's working on and might ask follow-up questions about her skills or experience. And this works because it connects her field of study directly to practical value and potential impact that she's going to make. That makes her stand out from the crowd. So, if you want a quick tip, practice this until it feels natural. Ideally in real conversations, but not necessarily where you want to start. Practice a few times in front of the mirror. Remember that if you sound scripted, people will tune you out. So try to deliver it with ease, and then you'll come across as confident and authentic. And another smart move is, if you're not getting those questions from the person you've introduced yourself to, then end your intro with a friendly follow-up question like, "What kinds of projects are you working on?" That way you're not just leaving the exchange hanging. You're trying to keep the conversation alive. And here we go. That's your challenge, or this is your challenge. I forgot to go through it. Don't be scripted. Try to practice until you deliver it naturally. End with a question. Next, your challenge for this week. Rewrite your self-introduction using today's steps. Practice it at least 5 times before your next meeting or event. And then notice how people react. Do they show more interest? Do they ask follow-up questions? Or become more engaged in the conversation? Come back and drop us a note in the chat. I'd love to hear about those results. And listen, if you are tired of being too busy to study English the traditional way, but you still want to see practical, real-world results, check out my course, Mastering English for Busy Professionals. It's designed for people with packed schedules just like you. 10 minutes a day is all you need to build the skills to speak English well. Link is in the description and in the chat. And speaking of the chat, I hope you will drop your questions in the chat, because I'll answer a few right after the Mastery Minute. And what is our word for the day? The word for the day is elevator pitch. Let me get that slide up there. Did you know that in 1850 something, Elisha Otis stunned crowds with a daring demonstration? He rode in an open elevator on the platform high above the ground and then cut the cable mid-ride. This let his newly invented safety brake halt just inches from disaster, proving in an instant how safe and revolutionary it was. That bold stunt, literally a pitch inside an elevator, convinced people of his invention in seconds. Then, fast forward to the 1970s, and the same principle of making an instant, persuasive impression was echoed by quality expert Philip Crosby, who popularized the metaphor elevator pitch for business, and he urged professionals to be ready with a concise and compelling message. Be ready to sell your idea in the time it takes for an elevator ride, just in case you meet an executive. So whichever story you prefer, here's why it matters to you. Just like those inventors and business pros, you'll have moments where you only get seconds to make an impression, and that's where this skill becomes essential. You got a tiny window to make your message stick, so it must be concise and clear and compelling, just like we've talked about. I mean, think about it. 30 seconds is barely enough time for small talk, so you have to choose every word carefully. So, for example, hi, I'm Jamie. I design user-friendly apps that make personal finance easy for busy professionals. See there? Short, clear, friendly, and hints at a bigger story. So, work on your elevator pitch because it works in job interviews, networking, or even casual chats when someone asks, "So, what do you do?" When you've practiced it enough to sound smooth and not scripted, then you create a moment that sticks in people's minds and their memory long after the conversation is over. And that, my friends, is it for episode 54, my goodness. Today we fix your awkward introductions so you can make a strong and memorable first impression. Next time we'll look at some of the trickiest English mistakes people make in business settings and how to fix them so you sound professional, confident, and crystal clear in any workplace conversation. And if you enjoyed today's tips, give us a like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. And I'll see you on Monday night at 9:30 p.m. Korea Standard Time for another practical and hopefully fun episode. And I don't see any questions, so I'll see you then. Have a good weekend.